Welcome to Real Talk with Karia Chritopher, the conversation. Our new season is filled with heart-to-heart dialogues, always unscripted and always unedited. We tackle issues from the bedroom to the boardroom. No topic is left unturned. We inspire and we ignite. We go where no one else dares, but always with dignity and flair. Join us for a new season of Real Talk as we learn, love, and laugh together. Hello, BVI, and hello, world. We are excited here at the Karia Chritopher Studios as we bring to you a new season of Real Talk. This season, we want to live in love and laugh and inspire as we choose different folks from the Caribbean, from the BVI, really who we believe have a story, and persons who may not like the camera. We want to hear a little bit about what's going on in their lives and how they feel about really the world and how can we make this world a better place. We can all agree that it has been a stressful year and a half, almost 2 years. We've all been through a really tough pandemic. Most of the world is coming back to normal, but it has been a very stressful time. So we decided here at the Real Talk with Karia Chritopher in our studios that we wanted to have some uplifting and inspiring conversations. One of my first guests for this brand new season is no other than Mrs. Lisa Penn-Lettsome. Hello, Mrs. Lisa Penn-Lettsome. Welcome to Real Talk with Karia Chritopher.
Thank you, Karia, for having me.
I'm so happy that you decided to say yes. Now, I know folks know who you are locally, but we don't hear a lot of your voice. And let me tell folks a little bit of how I came to meet the wonderful and very, very articulate and smart Lisa Penn-Lettsome. I wonder if most people know that you were the deputy governor at one point, and she was my boss. And she came into the room, very intimidating, but something happened where we clicked, and I'm gonna safely say I liked her from the start, but I want to say for TV, because this is my social, she can't say nothing else, that we liked each other very quickly. Now, tell me a little bit about yourself. You are very young, and for you to have that title of deputy governor, definitely one of the glass ceilings that women want to break. How was that experience for you? Because that was a few years ago. I don't think I had my second child yet. So that was, quite a bit. How was that for you? Talk about that experience and how you think, if you think that there's room for growth in that space for females still.
Yes. So thanks again, Kira. That's a lot of questions.
It is.
Yeah. So when I took the position as deputy governor, I was acting, and I stayed in that position for just shy of a year. And I was at the time, I think I was 38. And one of the misconceptions is that persons were struck at how young I was. And I think one person even said, in fact, more than one person, oh, she's too young for the job.
Yeah.
I don't know what that meant, but a number of people fell out with my father for saying that. Because fathers are very proud of their daughters.
Of course.
But I need to clear up a misconception.
Sure.
I used to be very annoyed when people said that, for the simple fact that the person who held the position before me took that position when he was 40, just 2 years older than I was. So somehow it's okay for a man to get the job when he's young, but not for the female. And that's one of the things that people overlooked. So it's not really how young you are. I really don't say anything negative about persons who assume a position when they're young, because I have held all my positions, professional positions, when I was young. And I think that's partly because I qualified in a professional discipline. So I came right into any job at a senior level. And that's just how it is.
No, I understand it. And she has been very condensed for an attorney, because generally attorneys are very long-winded. I want to go back a little bit on the fact that we're going to get off of it, but as I said in the beginning, the purpose of this season is to inspire, for us
Yes.
to learn and love and laugh. And what you said struck really accorded me, and that's where my other branch of my life with the Charm Academy, where we speak to women and girls and inspire them. Do you think that we've made progress since then, where the conversation is less about a woman and even her age, and even the fact that she has to have babies if she chooses to,
Yes.
or even the fact that she is very emotional. Oh, women can't be top bosses because we're too emotional. Has that conversation in your mind, has that shifted for the better, or are we still having a ways to go here in the British Virgin Islands?
I think it's improved. I think actually in BVI you have more women than men, even if they're not in the public service or the private sector. You just have to look around society and you would see that it's the women. And it's something in the Caribbean, I think. Women hold senior positions and they tend to be dominant in terms of numbers. So where you tend to get the friction is where you might have a male and a female competing at the same level. I think we still have the perception that, it's the male. And I'll give you an example. I Obviously people are still alive, so I have to be careful with what I say.
Okay.
But I remember distinctly being in a meeting with persons from overseas, and I was deputizing for someone, and that person started to cough. And all the people from overseas looked at me as if I must be the one to go get him a glass of
Oh,
water. And I just looked back at them because I saw immediately what was happening,
right.
and I don't give in to those type of things. So there's still the perception that even though we're in at the same sort of level, that somehow males have it. But Kerry, I must say this: it's partly the fault of us, of women,
How is that? Tell me.
because women don't generally support their sisters. And I have been a victim of that. Where I have gotten to on the back of hard work. And I think there's a joke where one lady said somebody saw a lady with pearls and they said, my goodness, what lovely pearls. And the other person said, goodness had nothing to do with it. you know, you work for what you have.
Right.
And I've had to do that. Nothing was given to me on a silver platter. Nothing.
And I certainly believe that. But I want to ask you something that's a little bit deeper. And I know that this is a very sensitive topic, but I think that you're articulating it so well, where others have struggled to kind of normalize the process of females being the big boss. Now, you generally could be characterized as very serious.
Yes.
And you have a beautiful set of teeth, but we don't see them a lot.
Yes.
And is that a coping mechanism for you? Do you think that, and maybe not just you, but any female that is in a very powerful position, that they should be more stoic than smiley to present that girl boss face?
I would think it's a little bit of both. So
Okay.
I'm naturally like that. I don't smile. You are what your genes make you.
Right.
And there's nothing I can do about that. So I've heard that comment even from in high school all the way up. Now, I do believe though that if you are a boss, there has to be a difference between the boss and the person who's not the boss. That doesn't mean that you have to be unfriendly or unhelpful or not supportive, but familiarity breeds contempt. I always say that. I'm a firm believer, and it's always been proven to be so. So I think that you need to have a little bit of division. It's a friend of mine made me laugh, and she said, she's from South America, and she said, I don't understand this thing with Americans and American children saying to their parents, "Oh, you're not my friend." And she said, "Of course I'm not your friend. I'm your mother." So it's a similar thing. You are there to be supportive, but I think people who feel that you can be over friendly and things aren't going to go wrong, I think they're kind of duping themselves.
Okay, so basically it's like a coping mechanism where you already set the bars and we are familiar with each other, but we're not friends. I'm your boss and you are an employee. Not
Yes.
exactly a look down. I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yes.
Sometimes I can say a lot of people struggle with that. Females specifically struggle with that because, as I said in the beginning, once you're in a particular position and you're labeled a female or you are a female, sorry, you have those pre-labels that you have to work against. We're
Yes.
too emotional. We laugh too much. We
Yes.
this too much. And so that can be something that helps us. And I think your statement is quite timely.
Yes.
Let's switch a little bit to children because I always believe in female empowerment. My brother, I know he's gonna be watching this. He laughs at me all the time. He was like, "I think that you need to focus on more on the men," and I do. But
Yes.
I believe that we have been behind the scenes for such a long time.
Yes.
Whatever platform that I can have to push women forward, I want to do so. So in that same space, as far as I know, only women, the female population, can have kids.
That's correct.
All sorts of things can happen, but we are still the only set of people in this world that can actually have children. Now, being a family woman and being a woman boss, it has to be a very tough thing to manage. What do you say to those other females and even the young up and coming rising stars out there who would be struggling with the idea of, well, should I have children
Yes.
now? Or should I focus on my career? And because we're so westernized, and I ask very long, loaded questions, I know.
Yeah.
And we're so westernized, it is a trend now that women are freezing their eggs and putting childbearing prospects on the side and focusing more on being a professional. What are your thoughts on that?
So, Karia, I'm glad that you asked that question because one of I spoke earlier about women not supporting women and well not supporting me, and I think it's the experience I've seen with other
Of
women.
course.
It's for various reasons. Sometimes I think it's a little bit of jealousy, and because from the outside looking in, it appears to them as if you've been a success at everything. They don't see the sacrifices that were made. They only see what is put out there when you close the door to your home and you leave.
Correct.
So the issue of when to have children, it's a serious conversation to have. There are going to be consequences in most cases if you have your children early. It's only a few lucky women who can have a professional career early and have children early, because it's very expensive to have children.
You're telling me.
Very, very expensive.
Yes.
Most of my budget goes on the education for my 2 children. And so you have to be prepared that if you're going to have your children younger, you might have healthier children because you have them when you're younger. But chances are you're going to delay your ability to make a financially successful career.
And what you're saying, unfortunately, seems to be true, but I have a big problem with that. And is it not time, 2021, literally 3 months from 2022? It's been really a tough pandemic, 2 years globally. Why are we still in a position where, as a female, you have to decide whether you're going to have children at 30 or have a career? Why is it not that you can have both? Why can't we be bosses and mothers and wives at the same time? Because I think that we are built to do it. So when are we going to change the language? How can persons like you, if that's what you want to do, help to change that language with giving females more confidence in doing what they want and not what society thinks is best?
Yes. So go back in time to history. You said we're built to do it, and yes, physically we're built to do it, emotionally we're built to do it. But in the days of our parents and their parents, there's a big difference. They had a support mechanism that we don't have. Most of them would have had 10 other children or 15 other children. And so there was always somebody to look after your child if you couldn't. We don't have that now. That means that if you have a career that's going to demand time at night, time early in the mornings when your child is still asleep, it means that you have to pay for that help. It's not free because we're no longer in a society where we have that big family network. So if you can afford to pay for that help, you're fine. If you can't afford to pay for that help, something is going to give.
You know, it's an interesting topic. It's an interesting answer. Obviously, nobody really wants to hear my view on this. I'm going to leave that there, but I appreciate that real honest response. I had a conversation with a known businessman here in the Virgin Islands, and then he said something like, you know, we need to have some fresh blood in politics. And I think we need women, but y'all women have to wait until you finish menopause because you get emotional, you get cramps, you get this and you get that. And
at that point, you should have just...
I told him out mentally. I was trying to be polite. But this is a businessman in a community.
Yes.
And for that type of language to still be so very casual and saying it in such a matter-of-fact way, and that clearly means that he believes that. That women can't be, he literally said, you know, you got to wait until, you know, you menopause because y'all emotional and y'all this and y'all that. I kind of actually blame us as women. I blame myself.
I was going to say.
Yes, because I should have said something more direct at that point.
Yes.
But perhaps still being a female, you don't want to be seen as an aggressive type woman. And I hate to use that word because I say, why can't we be assertive? Why can't we be strong-minded? Why it has to be aggressive?
Yes.
So it tells us that we still have, you know, some work to do here in the Virgin Islands and really globally.
Yeah, I agree with that. There are a number of things I agree with there. I agree that that person's perception is wrong, but it's probably based on his experience, and maybe it's how we deal with the fact that we're in a position of power. I have a term, I can't say on TV, but there's a management, a way that men manage. I know it might be controversial, but my experience, for example, is that men manage by not making decisions and thinking it will go away. And I said I'm going to write a book about it. And I have my name already for the book. I always tell people this, so I can't see the name on TV.
Okay.
So men are left with this perception, and it's our fault. I read a book once. I don't read little books. I tend to read a novel if I'm going to read a proper book.
She said little book, I'm done.
But I picked up a book, and the book was very thin, and that's what attracted me to it. And it says why women don't get the corner office. And the book was very thin because there are not many answers. There are few answers. And it says, you know, we have the candy jar at our desk. Men don't have candy jars on their desk. You know, we go to a meeting, we play with our hair, we twiddle our hair, we twist our hair. And examples like that. So it's, if you want to be in a position of power, that's why I didn't go get the glass of water. That would probably be on page 5 or so. You're the one who go fetch the water. All right?
Bossy!
So, and I think in BVI, it's a very, very difficult place to live. It's a small place. And instead of a sister saying to a sister who makes it, you know, good on you, and join in and giving support, they tend to be the ones that are the distracting forces. You have to keep your eye on them as well.
Yeah.
Because they don't support you all the time. So you not only have to deal with men with that mentality like you described, but you have to deal with women too. And it's tough. It's tough all around. But partly we're to blame by the way we make it easy for people to see who we are, read who we are. And I think we could do with a bit of more tact, some more tact in how we approach situations, instead of showing our hearts and showing our minds and opening up our minds and telling people, you know,
how you feel.
You expose your weak points.
Shane, look how she's talking to me right now.
No.
So, and to paraphrase, and I get it, and I'm listening to your very calm voice and
Yes.
your very strong rationale.
Mhm.
I don't know that I agree with everything that you said, but it actually makes a whole lot of sense
Yes.
because they do say females are very emotional. We're very
Yes.
emotional beings, and as I introduced you, I said you're very serious.
Mhm.
Nobody kind of really knows what you're thinking.
Right.
On the other hand, I am an open book. And I almost pride myself on that, but I'm going to have to now look
Well,
at.
If people know how you're thinking,
Mhm.
they can adjust their behavior to suit.
You're right. You're right. So, for instance, yesterday when I used to say, you see, we should have had this interview today because yesterday I had a meeting with somebody and I was like, listen, you may not like everything that I have to say,
Yes.
but I am not going to minimize my opinion, my voice to make you feel better.
Yes.
And I said that and I meant
Mhm.
every single word of it.
Right.
And I saw that person, which was a male,
Yes.
literally adjust the conversation right there in
Yes.
his
Yes.
thought and wine and words. So I probably should have said a little bit more neutral, but then I wouldn't be able to sleep last night. I had to be able to say it.
But you stopped that person from saying what they were about to say because you've exposed your position and the fact that you're not moving from it.
Well, I mean, I guess you're right. So we're going to talk about Shane again. I guess you're right in a sense, but I think that I slept like a champ last night. But I understand short-term benefits versus long-term
Yeah,
benefits.
because if I don't know the situation, but for instance, I would have said, just based on what you just said,
Yeah.
I would have said, there's some really good points you're making, but have you considered this? And I would have gotten from the person what they were about to say. But if you tell them, no, this is where I'm gonna stand, this is my opinion, you're not going to shake me, you don't have the benefit of knowing what that person was about to say.
Understood. And this is good, and this is so clarifying for me. I wish I could stay a little longer on this whole
I'm not an
section.
expert,
No,
I'm
but you're making
just
a lot of sense. No. Nobody said you're an expert, but you're making it. Common sense is common sense.
Yeah.
I have Matt here and now Shane, so I'm going to be asking my silent partners there to help me out here. I'm looking at these two men, and they're two men. And I'm trying to read their mind. Shane is always laughing, and Matt has like literally no expression. So now if Matt goes home with his wife and they'll like, okay, well, like I'll have to read you differently, then I'm gonna have to blame Miss Penn-Lettsome. But I understand what you're saying. It's a
Yes.
narrative, it's a learned behavior. And what struck me most, and we're gonna get off of the female empowerment section in a little while, but I think that's such an important thing for women who are where you are, women who want to be where you are,
Yes.
young girls who aspire to be more than just a girl,
Yes.
but they want to be known as something to understand really how this world works. And perhaps if I had somebody to tell me this when I was 15 years old,
Yes.
things would be better. But we love the fact that we can always change the narrative going forward.
Yes.
And so I think it's really great that you can be so refreshingly honest and really eye-opening. I love that you are so honest.
Yes.
But we are already halfway there in the show, so we're gonna take a few minutes for a commercial break to pay for this show. And of course, we want to thank Flo. Flo has been such an exceptional support for us here at Real Talk. We want to just showcase a little bit of what Flo has to offer. So we'll be back in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
When your dog rolls over, does it give you double data? Nope, but Flow prepaid mobile plans do. Simply stay topped up and you'll get double data when your Flow 7-day prepaid plan renews. That's up to 6 gigs for you to enjoy. Top up today. Now that's a good plan. Dial *129# to activate and stay topped up. Conditions apply.
And we are back here at the Karia Chritopher Studios with a delightful guest, Mrs. Lisa Penn-Lettsome. She really is really inspiring and no holds bar. But we're going to switch a little bit, just a little bit gears in terms of who Lisa Penn-Lettsome is. I know that you are an attorney by trade, but let's get into that particular type of career. When you were younger, both of us, you wanted to be a lawyer or a doctor. That's really all it was. If you wanted to be anybody, that's what you were trained to believe. No, there are places that are opening up, like the construction market and project management. Those things are a little bit innovation where young folks literally take a phone and make millions of dollars.
Yes.
What do you think about the market here in the BVI or young people? Are we training them to understand that it's more than being a lawyer or a doctor, when in fact, the lawyers and the doctors are the Lisa Penn-Lettsomes that are making, you're living very comfortably. I don't know how much money you're making, but I know you ain't down on the ground. So how can we improve that narrative with young people when we're saying, get into construction, get into project management, get into those non-traditional places. However, the people that get featured the most, the people that get on all the boards and get all of the prominent positions per se, are the lawyers and the doctors. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, so I agree with what you said, that we were conditioned, and it was from
Yeah.
our families. It's
Yeah.
again, it's a small community, and that was the limit of what your parents or your grandparents saw.
Yeah.
And so you weren't anybody until you hadn't arrived, unless you were a lawyer, doctor, or a carpenter, or something that they recognize.
Yeah.
But you rightly said we've moved on. I think children, it's gonna come out in the wash. It's going to be a cycle where all children are going to go beyond BVI and get their schooling and their experience. Some will come back home, some won't. And the ones who are going outside, they're seeing so much and they're exposed to so much that I feel with a little bit of guidance, they're going to choose careers where it's different. But it still makes them financially secure, or make them have them in a career where they're in demand.
So let me ask you this question. You said early on, that generally now in 2021 and recently, folks don't get 10, 12 kids. If somebody has 4 kids, you'd be like, oh, 4 kids.
Yes.
And generally you said because educating children is such a very expensive venture.
Yes.
You rightly said most of your income is going towards educating your children. So am mine. I just waited to
Yes.
see somebody got to graduate soon so I could get a little break. But
Yes.
the concern that I have is this, and I'm not sure how you want to see this or if you see what I'm trying to say. When we educate our children, we allow them to go abroad, we want them to get exposed. The likelihood of them coming back seems to be very problematic. And so
It is.
we have a huge population of expats because coming back home somehow does not appeal
Yes.
to our young children. What are we as parents doing wrong? What is the system doing wrong, if they're doing anything wrong? And how can we entice young people to come back home, if that's something that you think we should do?
Yes. Yes. I grapple with the issue as well, because the conversation for myself and my husband is, I don't think this child's going to come back home. And he would say, no, this other one who won't come back home. So it is something, whoever wins the bet, it, you see, our parents never had that bet
Yeah.
with us. It never was something, because they just expected you to come back.
Yeah.
And when I went away to school, I went to school in 3 different countries. And in each one, I told people, I'm not staying in your country, I'm going home.
Right.
So you have nothing to fear. But now our children aren't saying that. I really don't know what the answer is. I think that those children have to be allowed to develop some experience. You can't just come home with a paper, say you're a computer engineer, and then come home to BVI. You're not going to get the experience that you need to make you marketable outside of the BVI. So I think you need to stay outside of the BVI to get that experience and then come back home. And hopefully the public sector can't absorb all those people. Hopefully the private sector will, in time, take those people on. But you have to stay overseas for that
I agree with you
experience.
100%. But how is it that persons from mostly over the Caribbean can come to the BVI literally with nothing, make it, make the BVI at home. And I think there's not an argument that we
Yes.
have very expensive little territory to live in.
It is.
Bread is like $7.
Yes.
Rent for an apartment, if you want to live comfortably, is $1,200, $1,300 a month.
Yes.
And so it's a very high cost of living, but yet other people are making it. So I like to call BVI the little Caribbean melting pot.
It is.
Yet our people seem to still be struggling. When I say our people, the indigenous BVI landlords or belongers, I know it's such a very tough, sticky type of topic. People are scared to kind of touch it.
Yes.
And it has been said on this show, it has been said on other airways that BVI landlords are too entitled. We expect that because we are from here, things should be dropped in our laps.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So again, it's a little bit of both. And I believe, and it's a reality, people have businesses to make money, not to employ more than, John Bloke down the road is employing. The bottom line is going to be money. And I was told once that they've been hiring the people from a certain Asian country, which, it's very expensive to get those particular persons back home or to buy them a ticket to come here.
Yeah.
But we see that their numbers growing and growing and growing and growing. And I was told by more than one employer that they prefer them to be their landlords because they're friendlier, their customers are happier. And so I don't know what the answer is to that. But there are BVI landlords who are employed. But I know I myself have been a victim. We hear about people who come with nothing, or at least they don't have what you have, or you have to teach them or train them, and then they excel. That does happen. I think that with time again, and with some savvy, that could be turned around. But we need to find a bond. We need to be more supportive. I really don't know what's the answer beyond that. An employer is free to employ
whoever they want.
And if they're not BVI landlords, there used to be a provision in the labor code that says before you can renew a work permit, you had to show why you had to put a BVI landlord to understudy that person.
Yeah.
And I've heard Mr. O'Neill of blessed memory say it, and I see it now coming up again with the present minister for the subject. You just can't get employers to do that, to interview locals or to take on locals. So it's a perception problem because there are locals who are qualified to do those jobs.
I'm happy that you said that because
Yes.
I personally get offended.
Yes.
I really get offended when I hear people say that BVI landlords are entitled, we're lazy, we have bad service. And that's really such a blanket statement. I'm not sure who BVI landlords they're seeing that can create that blanket for everybody.
Yes.
But on the same token, is it bad to say that if you are a BVI landlord or a belonger, certain things should be reserved for me? I should get the best plot of land, or I should get priority to educate my children freely in the public school.
Yes.
I don't personally feel there's an issue. My both children are they were born in the U.S., but they're proudly from here.
Yes.
And there's always a little clause, even in school, U.S. citizens only or green card holders for any little thing.
Yes.
So we're going to touch base on that real quickly, but I got to take one more commercial break. But I really want to hear your full thoughts on that. We'll be right back. How can you connect with people authentically from the heart? Nothing replaces the human connection better than communication. And nothing will be able to get you further along than to connect with other people. Today, I am offering you personalized one-on-one coaching on public speaking, negotiation, body language, all the necessary tools to make an impactful statement. It's about shoulders back, head straight, mastering the power pose, and giving your audience of 1, 100, or even 1,000 the biggest impact that you can dream of. I take you on a personalized journey in a private setting, holding your mic, standing at the lectern, and being authentically you, true to yourself, being a better communicator. My services will ensure that you are prepared for your next job interview, accepting a public contract, speaking at a wedding, a campaign event, addressing the boardroom. The possibilities are endless. We will ensure that you are prepared and ready to shine, no matter the audience. My many years in front of the camera with thousands of interviews, hundreds of hosting engagements, dozens of boardroom deliveries, and yes, my certifications have prepared me to teach you the tricks of the trade and prepare you for your next big step in life. I cannot think of anything in life where communication is not important. I am Karia Chritopher of the Charm Academy, where we will make your voice your best asset to help you succeed. Call us today. We are back, and I wanted to really get your opinion on that because everywhere in the world, there's a clause, and sometimes it's big and bold.
And when you go into a country, it says U.S. citizens in
Absolutely.
this line, and it says foreigners in that line.
And that is correct. And so I take my foreigner self and go in the foreigner
yes,
line.
and keep your mouth shut.
Absolutely. And as you said, when you were in college, you said you tell them you're going back home.
Yes.
When I was in college, I recognized at that time I was not able to be educated where I wanted to be in the BVI. We didn't have a system there.
Yes.
And I understood I was a foreigner.
Yes.
And I was in my first set of education outside of high school. My tertiary education was in the deep south in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And they never heard anybody speak like me.
Mm-hmm.
And they're asking me a lot of really country questions.
Yes.
But I recognize I am not in their country, so I'm not going to be insultive in my answers. I had some patience and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times, though, I don't see that reflected here. It's almost like we have to dim down who we are. And I'm just struggling. There's a fine line behind a disrespectful response and being proud of where you're from and trying to really support the space. Where are we going wrong in this narrative? Clearly we're going wrong somewhere. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah. So yes, I agree with you with the you should have a sense of intent. It's where you're from.
Yeah.
And this is one of the controversial people with the things where people say that I'm controversial. I have a controversial view. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you that you have nowhere to go. This is where you're from. Yeah. So whether you commit a crime, whether there are more BVI landers or not, BVI landers commit crimes too, but we can't send them anywhere.
Yeah.
So you're stuck with them, and we have that. It doesn't mean that we must add to the crime level by allowing persons who are, perhaps known from a country or that needs to be heavily vetted or higher risk country. It doesn't mean that we must open our doors and allow everybody to come in, and add to our social demands, add to the infrastructure, the social breakdown, because we have to deal with our own, because we can't do anything with them. Now, I feel that why employers make that comment about BVI landers having the sense of entitlement is because we say it to them. And that rubs them the wrong way. And if you say it to them and also you're not qualified, well, it gives them some vindication. It gives the employer some vindication. But even when you are qualified, if you throw it back in their face, then it appears that you're rude or disrespectful.
Understood.
So it doesn't quite show the savvy that I was talking about that we need to get, as I referred to it earlier
You
on.
surely did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sit in your corner.
Yeah.
Suck up to the boss if you need to
She
suck up
said,
to the
"Suck up,
boss.
Shane. Listen to this. This is
No,
well. No, I'm
no.
listening to you, and I know that you
You
are
know
where
what?
you're at. Tell me,
If we don't do it,
somebody
then
else will do it.
the others are doing it.
Marcy, what a tough pill this is to swallow. I done in my mid-40s, and I'm learning these new things. So tell me, go ahead.
No, I've had this conversation already in a certain place where I worked,
Yeah.
and I heard a secretary complaining about her boss,
Uh-huh.
and I said, "But wait a minute, but he likes you," and I said, "Yeah," and they said, "Well, it was coming up to Christmas, and it was known that the secretaries get bonuses."
Right.
So I said, "Well, you need to play on that then. So tell you what, when Christmas comes and he gives you 500, ask him to double it. That's all. But don't complain. Just go with the flow and play along and get what out of it what you need for yourself without everybody having to know and without you having to say anything. Why do we have to air everything and vent everything?"
Shane, you hearing this? My mouth literally dry because it open. I hope you didn't catch my mouth.
But why
open
do
with
we?
that.
Why
I think 'cause we
why
have
do we
been
have to vent
conditioned.
it?
All of us are not accomplished lawyers. This is something that's in your
No.
DNA, I think.
No,
No?
but tell me, if you go to immigration in the US,
Yes.
why don't you complain to the immigration officer and say, "I've been waiting here an hour"?
But if I tell you I do, then you're going to tell me something wrong
Oh,
with me.
well,
'Cause
why
I-
wouldn't the normal person
It's
or
not
the
normal.
average person complain?
I
It's
understand.
because they're in a position of authority.
I understand.
And
I
you are
understand.
not. And
I
it's the
understand.
same situation where you have an employee-employer relationship.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, the employer is in the position of authority.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. We need to give more support to the employees, but I agree with that. The other 50% is that the employees have to not make it difficult for others to give that support.
I understand.
Yeah.
I do understand. It's definitely a lesson that we are learning as we go along, and it just really goes to show that you're never too old to learn. So I'm listening and literally inhaling everything that you have to say, because some of the things are really an eye opener.
Well, I don't follow my advice all the time, so there are times when I do what I sit here and say. I do the opposite to what I say, but I know there will be consequences.
So
And
you just have to know that there are
Yes, I'm prepared to live with those consequences.
Okay, all right.
So if I don't like a job, I leave. You understand? Or
I
I put
do.
in for a transfer. But if you put in for a transfer, you must know, well, you might not be as happy in that other job. You don't know. So there are consequences. It's all up to you.
I do understand.
Yeah.
So we're in October. Well, this show might air a few weeks from now, but things are quieting down in terms of the pandemic. We now expect to see an influx of tourists. Tourist season is coming up shortly. Are you excited as a resident here, somebody who makes a living here, your husband lives here, really he is in the industry for sure.
Yes.
Are you excited to have a more or less back to normal space, or do you think that we are not quite yet there, or we're not ready in terms of a people? We generally still don't like to wear a mask, even though we had a whole scare a few months ago.
Yes.
And we do have not enough of us are vaccinated
Yes.
to have herd immunity. What are your thoughts on trying to get the BVI back to normal?
Well, we need to get back to normal. We can't afford.
Right.
I don't care who tries to sugarcoat it. It's common sense.
Yes.
This is going into 2 years.
Yep.
We cannot. Every other jurisdiction is realizing. I think Antigua is saying in 2020, January 2022, there'll be no restrictions.
Oh.
I think that's the way probably England is going as well.
Yes.
So
Definitely.
we
Yes.
need to open up, and it becomes a very hostile conversation about who's vaccinated and who's anti-vax and what's not. And I feel that we need to find a way to coexist, knowing that the persons who are going to probably have the bad end of the stick in terms of health are the ones who are not. You know what? with businesses and schools all requiring vaccination, we're gonna get the rate up. You see, the U.S. just said you're gonna need to be
Mandated.
vaccinated, and the rates went up.
Yes.
So, but we could have been there earlier. But we need to open up the economy.
So it's time. In your mind, it's time.
Oh yes,
It is time.
Yeah.
Okay. And I agree.
You asked earlier if we are ready, and whether or not we're ready. We need to be ready, not only in terms of the protocols and health wise, but seriously, we need to clean up the place. There's too much garbage, too many derelict vehicles, and we don't look like we're ready.
I think 99.9% of the population will agree with that.
Yes.
It definitely is a very sad state of affair. I know we have BVI love, but everybody still has nature's little secret in their mind.
Yes.
And a secret normally is supposed to be something that you can't wait
Yes.
to get to here, unlock the code for.
Or we could go a step back. Yes, we're different.
Yeah, she said. So definitely we all agree it's time to open up. We all agree it's been a tough, almost 2-year transition,
Yes.
mentally and emotionally. But I do want to ask you, if we're sticking on the talk about the pandemic, because you're so well controlled in your thoughts and even in your stance and you're sitting down. I shift in here every 5 seconds and you literally didn't move your legs once. So you're very controlled in your thoughts, but a lot of us are not able to do that.
Yes.
And what I recognize, and this is from having a conversation with my youngest daughter, Cody, who is now a psychology student, so she thinks she's an expert now.
Yes.
She says she wants to normalize mental health. That's not a very popular language you use here in the BVI. There's a big stigma about psychiatry and counseling, but I don't think that there's anybody in the world who wouldn't say that it's been such a tough year. A lot of people would need to have some conversations about how they're coping.
Yes.
A lot of us had to be stuck in the house for weeks at a time, not going outside. What are your thoughts on the mental health well-being in this very small community in terms of coping with the pandemic? Persons losing their jobs, persons not having food to eat, not even being able to travel, whether it's just to St. Thomas, Puerto Rico, back in the different islands. Should we introduce a bigger mental health scope to get that way? Because even in government, at least in my experience, we haven't had a lot of, are you okay? What's happening with you?
Yes.
How do we do? What's your thoughts on that?
So businesses have increasingly been engaging employee assistance programs, which come with if I understand it correctly, it comes with that sort of support, the service that you can, there's somebody that you can talk to.
Yeah.
And so I think I have to slightly disagree with you there.
Okay.
What I would go further and say is, you think that I'm private, but a lot of people here are private, and I don't know that a large number of us would utilize those services here.
Really?
I think we would be more comfortable in going overseas.
But no, but a lot of people can afford that. At least Penn-Lettsome could afford it. So let's.
No, I get a cat or a dog, and that's my
I
therapy.
need to have a camera on Shane. You're gonna make Shane suffocate with this mask on, killing himself over there. But can we agree that you could afford to do overseas? You don't have to agree, but I tell you could afford to do overseas.
Yes, there are those who can afford. There are those who can afford to
And so
do
what
overseas.
are those people? So how can we normalize that? When you're going to take a young child over who hasn't seen a friend? Because a lot of the schools were operating remotely for months, if not even a whole year.
Yes.
That is not normal for a child, perhaps even a single child, not to see or touch or play with other children. And it's not a knock on the government at all, because I know that the government is stretched with resources like every other place. But the question is really just normalizing mental health. See, I get in the BVI ready for my child, but she rolling here.
Yes, I was going to come to that to say I hope that she comes back home. But I agree, we need to. But the services are there through a number of these
Okay, so
forms.
that's what you're saying.
And if you don't use them, then you need to get to your private doctor,
Okay.
who can then give you a referral to somebody here who is whether in the hospital or in private practice.
I think we agree
Yes.
on that.
Yes.
But you know what? Our time is up already.
Already?
Already. I cannot believe it myself. I want you to look in the camera. There was this camera, Shane. And I just want you to talk to the listening audience on a few words on, giving them, I don't want to use the word inspiring words because I can't put you in a box.
Yes.
The tools to be successful specifically as a young woman or even an older woman growing up. That's because I think that was your most salient point.
Yes. So I would think the answer, one word, focus. I think you need to stay focused. BVI is a very difficult place to live. I find it a very difficult place to live. So I think this is why my friend Karia thinks that I'm very private, but I am actually, that is one of my coping mechanisms that you referred to. And if you were to take on friends and people who don't necessarily wish you well or people who have a different opinion, these things are just distractions. You have to know what you want. And I was thinking about it driving here. Yes, I've had a bit of luck because I qualified in a professional field. So I kind of jumped up there to the top and was always in management positions. But I think that I got further because people saw what I was worth. I didn't have to rub it in their face and sell it. I think they just saw it. I also sacrificed a lot. I worked for very, very low salaries. I worked, in fact, in places where I was just ignored, not given anything much to do, just because of perhaps they needed a token tortillon. And eventually I excelled, I succeeded, I didn't complain, but I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. I know what I wanted to do and where it was going to get me and what my priorities were. And the other thing I would say is if you are focused on something, let's say if you have your eye on a certain position, you need to let somebody know that the person who can influence that you actually are interested. Because I don't think a number of times we tell people, we sit and think it's going to come to us. But you need to say to somebody, I would be really interested in this job. I remember you, Karia, you did that with the Sister Islands coordinator.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. You were very passionate and you said you were interested in the job.
And I got it, people, just so y'all know.
So focus.
I love it. Listen to me. I could not be more happier with this interview. You were brilliant and no holds barred, honest and transparent. Exactly what we were looking for in this new season. So BVI Caribbean, the world. I present to you Unreal Talk with Karia Chritopher, my good friend. People cuss me up when I say friend all the time, but this is my absolute wonderful boss. I will always call her my boss, and I respect her so much. Mrs. Lisa Penn-Lettsome, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to just have that conversation with us. And I can promise you, you will impact so many people's lives with just being so authentic and honest. And I just appreciate you just being so forthcoming here with us today.
Thank you for
very
having
much.
me, Karia.
My pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Karia Chritopher, here at Real Talk as we present to you a brand new season of inspiring conversations where we love and laugh and learn together. I could never, ever be here without the kind support of Flo. Flo, I am so much appreciative of this extremely huge platform. Thank you, Flo. Have a wonderful week to come. God bless you all. Real Talk is proudly powered by Flo, sponsored by Nagico Insurances.